There's like a slow motion, like hamster wheel. The vehicle starts rolling over. And I mean, we're all just basically rolling over in the back of this thing. We're all just like in a mess of bodies and gear and stuff. But flip the red lens on, and there's water at our feet. The vehicle's filling up with water, and we're trying to get out, but we can't get out. I just remember being like, this is just going to delay my death by 90 seconds. And I just remember telling the guys like, hey, we've got to get this door open.
Welcome to Combat Story. I'm Ryan Fugit, and I served warzone tours as an Army attack helicopter pilot and CIA officer over a 15-year career. I'm fascinated by the experiences of the elite in combat. On this show, I interview some of the best to understand what combat felt like on their front lines. This is Combat Story. In today's Combat Story, we sit down with former Navy SEAL officer Josh Thurman, who spent over 12 years serving in the SEAL teams, including at the elite level. Over the course of 11 deployments in the post-9/11 era, Josh led high-stakes special operations missions and nearly lost his life on countless occasions. Josh almost never joined the military and instead thought of becoming a religious leader, which we talk about in this episode. He would, of course, go on to then lead some of the most lethal and intelligent veterans on the planet on successful counterterrorism and hostage rescue missions. After his military service, Josh transitioned to the tech industry in 2023, co-founding AngelQ, an AI company to protect and prioritize the well-being of children in the digital age. With that, please enjoy this discussion with Josh Thurman. Josh, thanks again for taking the time to share your story with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan.
So for those who are listening and can't see, I just wanted to give them an idea of where you're at. So you're in an office just outside of Nashville, you said, and you've got this very interesting painting hanging on the wall. So I thought this would be a good jumping off point. What does that mean to you? And then kind of what is this office for?
Yeah, so this is our AngelQ office. So AngelQ is a company where I'm a co-founder. We're using AI to build a safer internet for kids. So I'm in our spaces here, and the painting behind me, it's sort of like a Grim Reaper, but the significance is, basically to seize every day. We're not guaranteed any day beyond today, and just also to remember to never be complacent. Things can be going great, and then can totally change. So life is hard, and as long as you keep that perspective, you'll probably be okay. If you think otherwise, then you're probably going to be in trouble. So that's the devil is just a day away, So always live for each moment. So that's what it's about.
Was that one idea that came up over one of your many deployments? Was this like growing up?
No. So this gets into, that's all my dad. So my dad is just an amazing person, someone I'm close friends with and look up to. And that's just something that like he's always lived by. He came from very, very humble beginnings. And as he pitches it or talks about it, it's, but for the grace of God, there go I. And just how so many paths in life happen where there's a lot of luck and providence that help us get to where we are, and never to take that for granted.
Very cool. Very cool. And you can't believe everything you read online, but did I hear this correctly, that there was an equal chance that if you did not go into the teams, you could have been a man of the cloth, as they say?
Yeah, no, that is true. So when I graduated college, a number of kind of things converged. One, I'd gotten into a pretty serious bike accident my senior year at college, just riding home from campus, and I got hit by a car. Broke my hip and broke my hand. So my last semester of college, I'm in a wheelchair, reeling around, and then crutches, getting around campus. That's sort of, I was on the path. I had done a pre-med. I was a chemistry major, had done those pieces. Had even applied to some med schools. And when that happened, plus, this is 2003, 9/11 had happened, obviously, in 2001. The Iraq War was kicking off, and I just started to be more called to being a part of present history and wanting to serve. And so when that accident happened, it sort of just reset everything for me. And that's when I started sort of moving more towards considering other options. And so when I got out, I just started working construction as a really like a holding period, as I'm trying to sort through all this in my mind. It's a bit of, you might hear this from many military, even team guys, but there's a little bit of like ADHD of like, there's all these things. How do you get it down to like something? What is the thing you're going to do? And so I considered getting my MBA. I ended up I cut that one pretty early. And then I applied and got accepted to Yale Divinity School, Region and Vanderbilt. And at the same time, I applied for the SEALs. And so at the end of the day, the service related aspect of the SEALs and it also being something that I couldn't do later in my life, that was the bigger draw. And, you try to those are hard decisions. And I always try to sit back and, trust your deepest knowing in those things. And so I felt like, I call it like sort of like the Moses burning bush moment. Like when I really would listen to that part of me, I would get even emotional about the opportunity to serve. And so that's how I knew I was getting called in that direction. And so that's how I decided to go down the SEAL route, and extremely grateful that I chose that route. And that I really only have extremely positive things to say about the community and the career and that part of my life.
That's amazing. Was it a pretty religious upbringing in that case, Josh? Like to have even had that inclination to go that direction?
Yeah, it was. So I'm in Franklin, Tennessee. We're in the Bible Belt, so it's certainly highly culturally relevant. I'm a child of like the 80s and 90s, so for people who remember that timeline, I can just remember. And I grew up in a small town. My grandfather owned like the filling station in town, and like what we have here is like a meat. If you've been to the South, there's like meat and threes. He owned a meat and three and like a barbecue one stop. And like I would grow up and like eat all my meals there. Like 5 days a week we're going there, and there's very little health value in those. And I'll just say if your kids aren't eating well, it's okay. They're going to turn out because it was fried chicken and my two sides, my two veggies are Jello and mac and cheese. So. I turned out.
I feel like you got some good genetics, Josh.
Yeah, yes, I was lucky. But yeah, it was a great small town, great American experience, and had a really loving father and mother who poured into me and my sister. I've got a younger sister about 3 years younger than me, and we went to church every Sunday. So we went to Bethlehem United Methodist Church, and I feel really grateful for those experiences. But it was even more than that. My parents sent me to. There's a number of private schools in the South. And so they sent me to a new one that has started called Christ Presbyterian Academy in Nashville. And it was just a wonderful environment, very loving and nurturing. And, I can remember in second grade in Miss Potts's class, basically we were like, hey, do you want to invite the Lord into your life? And I did right there. And so like, that's when I became a Christian, and that's been an important part of my life. And so that being said, so that was something, I think, I hadn't thought about going into ministry specifically, but like as I got, you go through college, you're like questioning the meaning of life and certain things. I wanted to sort of seek deeply, and that was something that I was very heavily considering. And so that's how that path almost happened. One thing I love about the military and the SEALs and the service aspect is that I can hardly think of times we talked about spirituality or Christianity or religion in general, like in the military. But the reality is when you're there with your brothers, those are guys who, you'll lay down your lives for each other. And that is the ultimate Christian value. And so I love that aspect of, living at that with guys like that and, walking the walk, I suppose. So that's something I love about the community and a little bit how I got there and how my thinking on it.
Yeah. Would anybody have been surprised to see you as like a 12 to 15-year-old and know that you were going to be a SEAL one day? Like, were you pretty reckless, adventurous, that sort?
I was a little bit mischievous, and reckless. The number of ER visits is pretty high. So, gosh, I had a major bike accident in 7th grade and it fractured my skull and was in the hospital for a while. Thankfully, fully recovered from that. And then going into high school, starting to have that freedom and driving, man, I'm really lucky. Like I didn't hurt myself or other people, frankly, because I was just pushing the boundaries so much. About a month after I got my license, I got a speeding ticket. Me and my buddy were like, how quickly can we make it to so-and-so's house? I mean, this is like 6 weeks after I got my license. Yeah. I get nailed going 77 in a 45. And my parents heard that, they were just like, I mean, and you're trying to justify it. And like, it's 32 over. It's not like you're going 5 or 10 over. The category of the like offense, it was like intent to kill. That was like the category on this ticket. Like, man. So obviously I lost my driving privileges for a while there, but we would have like wars with the girls in our class and like roll each other's houses and things like that. So we were having a good time and pushing those boundaries. It was generally pretty clean fun, but ran into the law a few times.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then I won't make all this about religion, I promise you, but just out of curiosity, as you join up, clearly medical school, MBA, divinity school, SEALs, very different paths. Mm-hmm. Was there ever any hesitation from a religious standpoint joining something like the teams in the special operations community? I mean, it's 06, I think, 03 to 06, like war's in full swing. You kind of know what you're getting into.
I really didn't. I felt like it was, the reality is I was getting him because the war was going on. I actually don't think I would have felt that draw had it been peacetime. So for me, it was this deep sense that, I think of freedom as such an important value, is so amazing about America, and preserving that. I was thinking after 9/11 happened, you could imagine how it could have gone. And you think about maybe terrorist acts on our soil, more things like that, and impinging on everyone, people's freedom, like through fear and things like that. And so to preserve that at the highest level was something very important to me. And, our ultimate freedom is spiritual freedom, but in life, we want to manifest as much of that as possible through all the freedoms we enjoy, in this great country. And so protecting that just frankly, it seemed in line with my faith.
Yeah. Why the teams? I mean, you're in Franklin, Tennessee, not too far from the 101st, right?
Yeah,
like why go Navy? Why go to the teams?
I think I was recruited on the playground, for the teams. And I say that because, it's one of my first memories of, I didn't even know what SEALs are. And I'll back this up. So my dad was in the Army, a little bit in Vietnam, and both my grandparents had served in World War II. And so I knew a little bit about service. And then someone very important in my life, a mentor. So my grandfather had served, one of my grandfathers on my mom's side served in North Africa in World War II. And one of his good friends, his name is Coach Jimmy Gentry. He's a mentor of mine. He was a PFC in the 42nd Infantry Rainbow Division and fought in the Battle of the Bulge. And so, and he and his unit liberated the Dachau concentration camp. So this guy's a legend in our town. We actually last year there's a statue in our downtown area for him. And, after he got back from the service, he dedicated his life to, basically supporting kids as a teacher and as a coach. So he taught and coached for like 60 something years in our county. He would, in the summertime, he had this 400-acre farm, and he would run a farm camp, and I would go to that camp. And so he would tell us all these stories about the war and things like that. So like all of that, like really planted a lot of seeds in me to want to serve. And so then when 9/11 happened and then the Iraq war kicked off, all those things really like came to fruition. And that's, amongst the things I had also mentioned, that's what sort of drove me in that direction.
What an amazing mentor to have. I assume he's passed away, right?
So he just passed away in April of 2022.
Wow.
Yeah, he was 94 and
amazing.
Huge life of service for obviously our community.
But not enough to woo you into the open arms.
Let me get back to the playground. I'm bobbing and weaving. So on the playground piece, I can remember you hear that it's like, yeah, well, a Navy SEAL can do this, right? And you don't even know what that means. But you're like, who's a Navy SEAL? Like they sound like these badass guys. And you can fill in XYZ. They can hold their breath for 4 minutes, bench 300 pounds, run 2 miles in 11 minutes, swim in freezing cold water. And it had this legend kind of pool. And this is kind of embarrassing, but I had seen that Under Siege movie with Steven Seagal, and he's the Navy SEAL in there. So that was it was a huge pull. These guys are the best, and if you want to, my thinking was if I want to have the biggest impact I can in the war, that would be the place to do it. And so, in that period, after graduating from school and then applying, I read a couple of good books. One was The Warrior Elite book by Dick Couch, and that goes through class 228, I believe. And that was a really good one. And then another one that is less well known, it's an older SEAL. His name is Chuck Ferrer, but he wrote Warrior Soul. Anyways, it's always interesting. Like there's the silent professionalism that we want to, hold ourselves to. But there's also got to be a point where people have to tell their stories because it's how you recruit the next generations. And so, Coach Gentry recruited me by telling me his war stories, and so I spoke at a Veterans Day event last year, and my message to all the veterans in the audience is like, hey, find a way to tell your story, because that's how people are, in the oral tradition, it's extremely powerful. And that's how we're going to recruit the next generations to keep serving. And so I encourage people to tell it, get good at it, try to get comfortable with it. Because I think most of us, I'm not very comfortable with it. I think most people are not, but I think it's important. So, that's part of it.
We'll jump into buds here in just a second, but when we talk about AngelQ, is that your way of helping kids the way your kind of mentor had helped kids, or did it come from what you observed when you were in service? I know we'll get to this in time, but I'm just curious before we go down that path.
Yeah, AngelQ really comes out of recognizing what I think a bad place our society is in terms of our relationship to technology. Over the past 20 or so years, as software has sort of blown up, and now we have AI, we have an internet and social media more specifically that I consider to be a democracy killing force. And it's productizing all of us. We've had, the best minds in tech, $1 trillion companies, the best psychologists who've created technology that it's extremely addictive. It has major negative effects in terms of splintering our society and sort of unmooring us from each other and from ourselves. And the people group who suffered most from that is our kids and our young people. And so I think we can probably talk maybe more in depth about that. But at the end of the day, we've got a mental health crisis for our young people, and there's got to be a technology alternative. So that's how we got to AngelQ, and that's I mentioned our mission is to use the AI to make the internet safe for kids, and our vision is to have technology that operates in the service of people's well-being, which is really counter. Right now, technology, for the most part, it exploits us. It's an attention economy where it takes your eyeballs, tries to get you hooked up to the machine, and then sells it on a shadowy market to advertisers. There's really no care for how you're doing, how your mental health is, or what's happening to society. It's all about driving more attention and obviously profits.
And we'll dig in more on this as we go along. I just wanted to see, before we jumped into you getting into combat and everything, if the taking care of kids came from this mentor or somewhere else. And it sounds like it's going to be something that unearths during your deployments or after.
I've got 5 kids, and so my oldest is 10. So a lot of AngelQ is wanting a better solution for them and not sort of sending them into what I kind of consider to be an ambush in terms of technology. So
yeah, I've got 3 older kids. So the youngest is 12, but we wrestle with this. So we'll get into it. Let's talk buds quickly. One of the things I like to ask SEALs in particular is, what is the coldest you've been? Was it at buds, or was it later on in follow-on training or deployments?
Oh, that's a good question.
Just a quick word from our sponsor, Mint Mobile, and we'll get right back to this combat story. I don't know about you, but I like keeping my money where I can see it. Unfortunately, traditional big wireless carriers also seem to like keeping my money too. After years of overpaying for wireless, I finally got fed up from crazy high wireless bills, bogus fees, and free perks that actually cost more in the long run, and switched to Mint Mobile. We're saving every month thanks to Mint Mobile on the phone I use for combat story work, and not only is it great, but the coverage does not disappoint. Say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts, just like I did. If you like your money, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/combat story. That's mintmobile.com/combat story. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5 gigabyte plan required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customer offer for first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. And now back to this combat story.
I think follow-on training, and I can remember we were doing an SR, and
what is an SR?
Surveillance and reconnaissance.
Okay.
Yeah. So SR mission, and this is up in the mountains in Utah, and we were prepping for like an Afghanistan type deployment. So we go set up our hide site, and we're observing our target area, and we're out there, I think, for about 3 days. So it's my turn to take watch. This huge like rainstorm comes in. So I get to my watch post where I'm gonna set up, and it was one of those scenarios of like didn't have like the best gear on, but it was gonna be too difficult to like go try to like reset, and so just got dumped on for hours, and then it dropped to below freezing, and that was an extremely, I think that was one of the longest nights of my life. And so I will say buds is extreme. You will get extremely cold in buds. There are, in many cases, the parts of buds just might not last as long as something even like an SR mission, which might be, it's an evolution. It's like, certainly Hell Week is days long, but a lot of things are not that long. So, but yeah, for me, that one stands out. I can think of another time we were going on this is also in Utah. I guess we did a lot of cold training.
Bad memories in Utah. Yeah.
Yeah. We were going to do this offset foot patrol, but we needed to drive in Humvees to the vehicle drop off point. And so, there wasn't a lot of room inside the Humvee. So I'm sitting in the back of it. And when you're patrolling, you get warm, right? And so I didn't overly dress. And it basically got really cold, and we were driving 30, 40 miles an hour in that sort of wind shear. So when I got out, I was extremely cold, like to the bone. And even though we walked 10 clicks, just never even warmed up. So that was another one. And then in buds, it's almost every day you're in some sort of extreme cold. So,
oh man, I didn't ask earlier, why did you go the officer route? Did you consider both directions? I'm sure pros and cons on either side. Yeah.
So for the officer route, you have to apply for the billets, and it's a pretty fairly rigorous process. And in many ways, I use that to some degree of like, as I'm deciding, like, should I go to divinity school or this? I thought, hey, I'm going to apply for this through this process. And like, if I get it, I think that'll be kind of a sign. So like that sort of drove me more in that direction. And so that's what I did. There was, I think, 8 billets for the year when I applied. Actually, the first round didn't get picked up, and then I applied again. It got picked up the next year. But yeah, that was sort of what my thought process was. And I didn't know any SEALs or otherwise, and I had been to college, so it sort of seemed like the right thing, or the thing that seemed appropriate. Looking back, I think I would have maybe rethought that, but I just didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah, of course. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so buds, any particular learnings you took from that you might still use today, or that just set you up for success?
Yeah, I think that's really the first place. So you went through officer candidate school. That's only it's about 3 months, and then you report to buds. You end up being a boat crew leader, and so it's the first place you really have some effective leadership opportunity, and it's pretty nascent, but it's there. And one of the things that I think is helpful is you recognize it's like, hey, I've got to take care of this whole boat crew. Like this is the group that's been charged to me, and so if you can keep your mind like off yourself, that is probably the most effective method for getting through buds or anything extremely challenging. And I actually think getting put in a leadership role can be helpful there, because you're forced to do so.
That's super interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting take on it.
Another thing I can remember, like we would run. There's a lot of running in buds and swimming, but a lot of running. So from the compound there in Coronado, which is on the west side of the highway there, every meal you'd have to run a mile to the chow hall and then eat and run back. So, but we'd line up in ranks outside the chow hall and you'd go in one at a time, but like all the officers wait to eat last. And so a lot of it's symbolic at that point, but I think it's very important to recognize it's like, hey, that you're there for service. It's like, it's not about you. And so that sort of mentality carries out certainly through your time in the teams, but also in life with your family, with your job, with everything. And so, when I was interviewing to go in, there was a commander, I can't remember which SEAL team who interviewed me. And he had told me, I think I'd asked him like, what's your approach or should I think about this? And he's like, hey, you run everything through this lens, like mission first, like men always. And it's super effective. Like it simplifies everything and it keeps the mission top of mind, but taking care of your guys, taking care of your people it's always right there. And that's something that's super applicable across, all aspects of life.
Are you still able to use something like that in private industry, Josh?
Yeah, I think so. We have an important mission in AngelQ, which is providing a safer alternative internet for kids. And so we think about it in mission oriented terms of like, hey, every day our product isn't out there. There's all kinds of bad things that are happening to kids on the internet every day. And so, and that's something that really drew me to want to be a part of this is, once you've had a mission oriented focus, it's really hard to do something that lacks a real drive to it. And so yeah, I think it's applicable. And you have to take care of your people. You can drive them so hard, but at the end of the day, they're all, it's people, not hardware, right? Like you have to take care of them and make sure that they're doing well and being effectively supported and trying to do something that's really quite difficult. So
any ways that you guys used to keep it light at Buds, just to smile occasionally?
Oh yeah, there's tons of shenanigans that happen. I mean, in many ways, looking back, there's a lot of fun times. I just remember like some of the you can read about Buds online. You can see what the evolutions are. You can see the Discovery Channel videos, and you can and read the books. You can get a pretty good sense of it. Like the thing that doesn't come through any of that until you experience is sort of this we call like extra Buds, which is all the challenging things or like just beat downs that happen for not meeting some sort of standard. And we had this. I mean, he was a great instructor, but he was just diabolical, like in first phase and. We ended up being good friends later, but like looking like in the military pipeline that is like that. And so the reality is enlisted guys choose who gets through, but they also choose who the officers are effectively because they're putting them through the training. And there is a phase officer. There's only one phase officer. And then you have all the cadre who's running the evolutions. And so the LPO is effectively like in charge of the day to day. And they're going to make sure, I mean, that they're getting the best candidates and they will do whatever they need to do to make sure that happens. And so this guy, he has this like nasally voice. And one of the things he did to us, which is so you have all these inspections, one like helmet inspections, uniform inspections, knife inspections. And so the way we would try to game that is have multiple versions of these things and like have them hidden somewhere else. So like if you do an inspection, something that might happen if the instructor doesn't like it, they might smash your helmet or dull up your knife or any of these things. And now you're gonna have to spend hours to fix it. So you would have like 2 or 3 of these things so that you could, swap them out. Well, he knows this, everyone knows this goes on, but he got approval to do a vehicle inspection, which, so you're living in the barracks, but your vehicle is kind of like in theory off limits, but he got command approval to do a vehicle inspection. And so we're all in the leaning rest, doing push-ups, getting wet and sandy for hours, while one by one, we're running to the barracks, getting our car keys, going and opening the vehicle and like letting the instructors come through it, which I mean, I think I had like 7 helmets in my trunk, and
I
like
didn't
all of
know people
those,
did this. I've not heard that.
yeah. So all of those were gone, and so um, yeah. I mean, that was one of the diabolical things. I mean, I can also remember. So when we were a June class, which is a warmer time, that's typically good. But there was this crazy, I think it's like the El Nino effect, like in the Pacific, and this extremely cold water came in, like in the low 50s, which is, you kind of expect that, but in the summer it can get warmer, and it had been like in the 60s. And so it was a little bit warmer outside, but the water had gotten extremely cold. And like, I can remember this, how we sick, and I was like, Mr. Thurman, it seems that Mother Nature has taken a shit upon your hell week. That was his voice, this like nasally voice. You're just like, oh my gosh. Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
I
great.
had a number of interactions with this instructor, and I think the thing that got him, I was, you have chores, that you have to do to take care of vehicles and things like that. And so I remember driving the truck on the grinder where you do all your PT, and he was there, and like you try to the greatest possible extent just avoid instructors at all costs, like just be out of sight, out of mind, unless you absolutely have to be there. And this was just one of those things, and I remember giving him this sort of like this like gay wave, and like. And and he just started. He couldn't help himself. He started laughing, and I think from that point on, we ended up being, buds. And then he was at the teams when I went to my first assignment. He was at that team,
Wow.
and it was crazy because he had been an instructor who you're like extremely wary of, and then now on the other side of it, now you're friends and working together, and
He's just another guy.
yeah, tremendous respect for this guy. We're still friends now.
That's great. As you're getting out of buds, and I don't know if at any point in your career, like without going into details, you go to very elite levels here. Is the OCS route ever held against you? It sounds like it's not, but is there ever hey, you didn't go to Annapolis, you didn't do ROTC?
Yeah, I didn't feel that. I think there is an early disadvantage, and it's not like an institutional thing. So, I had a regular college experience, and then did 12 weeks of basically like a boot camp that's run by Marine Corps drill instructors. And they do a fantastic job, but it's 12 weeks. And the guys coming out of the academy, or even ROTC, have had 4 years of learning the system and the process. And certainly for the guys out of the academy, they're training together from day one, trying to get ready for buds. And obviously that has a powerful effect. And so frankly, it took me a while to sort of catch up to just like basic knowledge of how the military works, and not being just we called it, I would call ensign 10 days, ensign 10 days, like you've been an ensign for 10 days. Like, when you make just really dumb mistakes, and it took a little while to like work through that. And then later, in some ways, I think OCS can be an advantage because you might be sort of you think maybe a little bit outside of some institutional norms. So
for sure,
there's pros and cons there.
I was just recounting a story. It's funny you say this, like recounting a story to somebody a week ago about one of the first times I gave a mission brief as a platoon leader. And, I've got pilots in particular are older typically. You got like these senior warrant officers who've been flying as long as I've been alive. And I'm trying to tell them what to do on this mission. And then I kind of finish, and everyone's like, all right, that was pretty bad, sir. Here's what, like very humbling experience.
Yeah.
Did you have any memories like that on your side? Is it like that when you get to the teams? Is somebody putting their arm around you and kind of teaching you?
I would say there are many humbling experiences. I mean, when you show up, you're a new guy, and that's very clear that that's the case. And even though you've been through training, now you have your trident, you've got to work up with your team and prove that you're deployable in all these skill areas with guys who've been there and done that. And so there's always like a new hurdle to cross, and that's a big one. And so I can remember we were in our troop, we had 6 total officers, and I was the most junior. And sometimes in training, the senior guys will get some reps, and then it's like, hey, we want you to get some opportunity here. And so I was running this troop level diving operation, and all of a sudden this dynamic change of like, oh, the new guy, and then it's like, oh, you're kind of in charge. And and guys are just giving you all kinds of shit for that. Right. And it's all, um, helpful. Actually, it's instructive, but they will let you know when you're stepping out of lane and what your place is. So,
how long is it until you make it to your first deployment from when you hit your unit?
for me, it was about a year, and that was uh, typically it would be longer than that. But I had just the way I came out of buds and the way the billets shook out, I had missed a lot of some of the opportunity where you can go to schools and things like that. And so we jumped right into our workup, and you did a full kind of platoon level workup, and then you do more of a team level workup where you're integrating like the full team for operations for a period of time, and then you build up and get effectively your deployment qualifications, and then roll out the door.
What role were you in when you deployed that first time?
Yeah, so I was in our platoon. I was what's called the third O, or officially the assistant platoon commander, but I was the junior assistant platoon commander. So it's the truth is it's a great place to be, and because you get to see and watch, learn how everything operates, but you don't have a ton of responsibility, and you can be effectively like a shooter, which is really what everyone wants to do. Yeah. So that was a great opportunity. I got to, in training, I carried a Mark 46, one of our automatic weapons, and got to do that, and that's fantastic. I spent a lot of time, as the 50 cal gunner on the top and the turret on the Humvee, and and you get to do all the mission sets and learn those things, and going through the close quarters combat stuff. You can just be a guy in the train. So all that was extremely helpful learning opportunity that paid huge dividends for me later.
And then you end up going to Iraq, I think you said, right? So this is your first deployment.
Yeah, first pump was over to Iraq.
Can you remember the first time you go outside the wire?
I do. I mean, so I remember flying in there, and we were out west. So flew in there, got picked up. Remember, like some guys had already gotten there ahead of us, and I remember we were driving down a route that had been heavily ID'd and lots of ambushes and things like that. And we were, to counter that, we're driving on the opposite side of the road, driving at high speeds and things like that. And it was like, it was a pretty clean ride, but it was like, okay, we're here, and this is the real deal. I can also remember once we were on base, just feeling for the first time, like in my life, that like people on the other side of this T-wall, not all the population per se, but like there are people who want to kill me and all my teammates, and being that close to it it's just something you don't experience unless you deploy in the military, and really like sort of soaking that in and taking that sort of level of gravity.
What did you do at that point to kind of relax when you're not on an op?
Gosh, I don't remember relaxing too much, but I mean, it's an important part of it. I think once you get in country, there's so many things you need to sort of like, you have to absorb. And so the first like couple of months really are, you're learning your area of operations. You're learning who the battle space owners, particularly like as an officer, like you're handling those deconflictions, and you're also learning, like we call them SIGACs, like, hey, where are people getting attacked? Like, where's all the action happening? So like, there's a huge level of intel dumping. And then, I will say, so, as an officer, you're often, mission planning and like trying to get mission approval. So like, if you're not operating, like almost every other waking hour is like pursuing those things. And so there were just like a ton of really long days where you just, we would be on a night cycle. You might wake up at 11 or 12, work until, if we didn't go out that night, you work until about midnight or later, exercising, and then, going to bed for 4 or 5 hours. And like, you're just repeating that cycle, over and over again. So once you like can settle in just a little bit in terms of like, okay, I know the AO, I know the roles and responsibilities very clearly and things like that. We'd have like movie nights with the guys, and I wasn't much of a gamer, but guys do game a little bit. these different routes where like our folks are getting IED'd often. So in response to that, we got a lot of these MRAPs. And so these V-hauled vehicles, very good at like protecting from IEDs. And they have like 4 inches of glass in the back and things like that. But they're extraordinarily heavy. I mean, it's like a semi with these huge suspension systems and things like that. And so I can even remember like getting there and like checking out because we hadn't seen these vehicles before. We'd only trained with Humvees. So we get there, we're checking them out, learning the comms, and like, I'm a little bit claustrophobic, so I don't like being in closed, trapped spaces, right? So I can remember sitting in the back of this thing and being like, "Hey, how do we get out of this thing? If we're in a bad spot." And the doors are so heavy; they're on a hydraulic system, and so you basically need that pressure to like open them. And other than that, there's not a lot of way you can't. I mean, it's hard to get out of this thing, and you can't break the glass like you might in a civilian vehicle or even a Humvee. So we go on this op. And we're driving around, getting set for the target, getting ready to dismount. I was in the back of the vehicle, so you have basically a vehicle driver, vehicle commander up front, and then all the boys, all the troops, and our gear in the back. So I'm in the back. We're getting close to the target. I remember feeling it was like we just sort of sunk down. There's like a feeling like this on my side of the vehicle, and I was like, that was weird. And we didn't have any belts on or anything. And I can remember it was like a slow motion, like hamster wheel. The vehicle starts rolling over. And I mean, we're all just basically like, rolling over in the back of this thing. And so we get settled and we're all just like in a mess of bodies and gear and stuff, but flip the red lens on and there's water at our feet. I remember looking at, so we had Heeds bottles. Heeds bottle is like, it's a small, like basically like scuba thing, but these things were put in the vehicle in case, you needed an extra, some extra breaths, I guess. And, I mean, I can just remember having this like very intense discussion of this thing the vehicle's filling up with water. We're trying to get out, but we can't get out. And so we're handing out these Heeds bottles. And I can just remember being like, there's like 90 seconds of oxygen in those things. Like, it's like, I just remember being like, this is just going to delay my death by 90 seconds. And I just remember telling the guys like, hey, we've got to get this door open. I mean, I can remember cranking this, there's a hydraulic release and just cranking that thing and it got released. Of course, we didn't know this at the time, but we'd rolled over into a canal and this bridge had given way. We rolled into it. All of the doors but one were impacted in mud, but which we didn't know that it's pitch black and whatnot. And so huge credit to it was the vehicle commander at the time. Is a very stubborn guy, and meaning in the sense of he's just not going to quit on anything like most SEALs. And he just kept pushing against his door. Once the vehicle got almost completely full of water, he was like, "Hey," I mean, we're about chest deep in water, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to be able to get it open. Just hold on." And so he finally gets it open. We breath hold, out and basically swim out of this thing, and everyone made it out, thankfully. But it was a harrowing experience, I will say that much. And our guys on the outside, they didn't realize at first what it even happened. I think we're the last vehicle in the train, and so they keep going. They're like, "Hey, this vehicle's gone." So they circle back and just see wheels up. Naturally, they were very concerned, and I mean, these vehicles are so heavy. Like they were going to try to like yank it out of the mud, but it's like really unrealistic. And then they were just being like they were obviously extremely concerned. And then they just saw all our heads like pop out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just they had just this huge relief. And so we got through that, and then we went and hit the target.
No,
and so
really,
yeah. And then we went and hit the target. Guys are sopping wet. That is a great thing about this is you roll with whatever comes, and you don't get absorbed by it. It's like, what's next?
Oh my gosh.
And just kept pressing, and then hit the target, secured. I mean, part of it is, you're in a pretty precarious position with a down vehicle like that, and you don't want to be a target of opportunity for anyone. So securing the area and including the target building was important. So that we did that, and then it's crazy. It's like, how do you get this heavy ass vehicle out of the mud, like in Iraq? I will lend it to the Marines. They had this like insane, like I've never seen it before, tow truck for like just for these scenarios, and they came out and we secured the perimeter, and they like wrenched this thing out, and it's full of water, and like all our gear's like muddy and stuff. But we got it all back and dermoed that stuff and lived to fight another day.
I'm sure you've had many near-death experiences. Have you had a point where you kind of accepted that you might just not make it out? Of like, I got to imagine when you're in a confined space and the water's filling up, there's something in your mind. Maybe from a religious standpoint, you don't go there, but
Fortunately, it never got there because it was just so like you were like focused on working, like doing something. I think if you get in those scenarios and you're like you feel like you can't do anything, that's where I think your mind gets in a bad place. But we're at a place where it's like, hey, we're all just going to keep trying our efforts, and thankfully, obviously, got a way out there.
I got to imagine there was a lot of trash talking. Whoever was the driver for that later on
yeah. This poor guy. He had joined our deployment. He wasn't a part of the platoon, but he had finished. So when you finish, when you get your trident, sometimes you might get assigned to a unit that's already overseas. So gets deployed and starts working with us, but he hasn't been through the full workup. So he's being integrated slowly into our unit, and he's driving. And I know he felt terrible. We were all just like, I mean, the truth is we didn't give him any. I mean, maybe later we rode him a little bit, but we wanted to let him know that it absolutely wasn't his fault. It was a shitty Iraqi road and an extremely heavy vehicle, and that's unfortunately what had happened there.
Where does this come from, the idea for AngelQ? Like, is it something that you see during the deployment? Is it because you have kids now? Like, why start something like this?
Yeah, so I got out of the Navy, being a team guy in 2018. I had a tremendous career, 11 deployments, and just hit it as hard as I possibly could that entire time. And met my wife, first met her in 2011, and then we got married in 2014. And we wanted to have a big family, and so the op tempo of that, with trying to grow the family, was just frankly creating a lot of tension, and was something that probably just wasn't sustainable. And so in 2018, we made the decision to shift, for me to get out of the military, come back to where I'd grown up in Franklin, Tennessee, and then it was really hard to leave because you've built up a reputation, credibility, years of experience. But I think it was the right thing to do. And it wasn't so, my dad's an entrepreneur. And so like, I'd always wanted to run my own business and saw opportunities there. And it even goes back to like what I was thinking about post-college. And so getting into business was something that I wanted to do. While I was in, I felt like there was, watching the tech boom, it felt like there was a little FOMO going on of like, these companies are doing very well. They're doing cool things out there. And like, I'm in a completely separate silo that really can't touch that at all. And so I wanted to catch myself up in that regard, and really ended up linking up with an old family friend who had a background in tech. And we co-founded a DevOps enablement company to help software developers with their test environments. And that was something I absolutely had zero experience in doing, and just like a team guy jumping out with a very small parachute and learning on the way down, or I should say, learning from the fire hose, drinking from the fire hose. But I felt like it was something I needed to do because I didn't know how software worked, even how like companies were built, things like that. And so, you can learn the most from doing. And so I got into that, frankly, had several pivots and failures, not knowing a lot about what we were doing, and then figuring it out, pulling something out of that. And in that process, that lasted about four years or so. And that company's still going. I'm just not part of it on a day-to-day basis. But Tim, my co-founder, it was his brainchild of an AI intermediated internet for kids. And when he pitched it to me, I was immediately sold, in the sense that I recognized what a deep societal problem this was, and the opportunity to do something about it was extremely compelling from the mission aspect. And so that's how I got to AngelQ. And, I talked a little bit earlier in the podcast about, where we are as a society. And I was sort of fertile ground for that idea, because when I got out in 2018, I'd been in this, I'll call it like a military bubble. You've got all the friends, you have a mission, you have friends, have no need for social media or anything like that. And you're a little bit segregated from what's going on in society. And we're getting out feeling like the world was like quite different from the 12 years to when I was previously out of the military. And it was strange. It's like you have 1,000 connections online, but like who are you going to call to like move a couch? It was like, this is just strange. So this is strange. And like you go out in town and even like, you've got our kids and like going to the parks and like everyone's on their phone. And I never had a social media account. I'm like, what is going on? And obviously we're seeing like huge divisiveness, like in politicization and how our government operates. And so like the world had clearly changed. I recognize there's like some pretty serious problems going on. And so, I look at like, I think big tech has been hugely the driver of this. We talk about, this technology has been used to productize us. It's very addictive. And I mentioned that, social media is a democracy killing force. To have an effective democracy, you need people that are rational, you need people that are well informed. They need shared experiences, and you need people who are like willing to do sacrifice for something bigger than themselves. And like social media attacks every one of those things. It encourages irrational, reactive, unempathetic behavior, narcissism, like sociopathy. Like if you want to do well on these things, there's this guy, George McLuhan, wrote a book in the 60s about how media sort of transforms societies. And this is like back in the 60s, but his key insight was like the medium is the message. And so you can see how social media, like the world is adopting to get their message out on social media. And in doing so is becoming increasingly like toxic. And so, and that's the world we, live in now. And, big tech's been able to get away with, incredible injuries against our society because they've been basically given a blank check through, to get into like the legal aspects of it. Like they've had no liabilities for what happens on their platforms. And so because they've had no liabilities, there's no limits. When they get sued, nothing happens because they're under a carve out from what they use as like section 230.
230, yeah.
That's right. And so this is what we've inherited, right? And we look at how bad it is for kids. A lot of what I'm going to talk about is from the social psychologist Jonathan Haidt. He's got this great book out, Anxious Generation. I highly recommend it if you got kids to read that. And then Jean Twenge is another one. She wrote the book iGen. But starting around 2012, which is when you've got iPhone, high-speed internet, social media goes mobile, and you've got like a front-facing camera. Like all those things collided to where now most teenagers are spending 4.8 hours as the average on social media, and their total screen time is like 9 hours. So virtually every waking hour, they're in this virtual world. And in doing so, they have these huge opportunity costs of they're not socializing, they're not learning skills, they're not even doing their homework. And then the really bad aspects of it is like depression, anxiety, self-harm, all these numbers have skyrocketed. So now if you have a daughter, there's basically a 1 in 3 chance that they'll be diagnosable with depression in their teen years. And that's up 250% from pre-2012. And so I think about my 10-year-old who's getting ready to walk into that. And it's, if you got your kids, you're going to walk down the street, you're like, hey, there's a 1 in 3 chance they're going to, be seriously hurt. And in this case, it would be a mental illness. Those are not as odds that any of us can live with. And so that's really why I feel so passionate about AngelQ, is because of all the things we need to fix this. One, we need legislation. We need people to be more educated about what's going on, people doing that. But there's got to be a technical solution that takes care of kids, right? And in terms of the relationship with technology, in terms of not trying to exploit them and helping them, thrive and grow and do all the things that are meaningful in life. And so that's what AngelQ is about. And the product itself is it's an AI super browser. When kids are using it, it's an app you download from the App Store. They're engaging with AI, and that AI basically filters out all of the bad things you don't want your kid to see on the internet and provides them the useful information. And so what it really is, if you're a parent, like what are your options? I don't want my kids going down this path where they're getting addicted to technology and then also where they're exposed to the world and the world has access to them. So I can basically like eliminate technology at the extreme. That would be like, we think about like, that would be like an Amish kind of option. That's not a great option because your kids need to be able to interact with technology, and you don't want them to lose influence with their peers and as they're growing up and have opportunities. The other option is like you sort of hope for the best, and that's not a really good option. So what AngelQ is doing is we're providing a third option where you have a useful tool that can gather information that is educational. It's even fun and entertaining off the internet, and you're not exposing them to all the really bad parts of the internet. And so that's where what the tool does, and helps kids be able to learn, to research, to be entertained, and to develop a healthy relationship with technology.
And it doesn't have a social media component to it. It's more browser based.
Yeah. So I would think of it as this is the first internet and probably the only internet access your kid needs, probably from age like 5 to 12. Later, we expect to have a teen product that will have a social media component to it. And when I say social media component, something that will help them manage it effectively without getting sucked in. But the product today is a first internet for kids. They can talk with it. They can engage with it. It can do things for them, meaning they can look up images. They can learn about just about anything they want to. We can even pull videos safely off things like YouTube Kids so they can watch those. And it's all been designed with non-addictive quality. So the videos don't autoplay, for example. So when kids are done, they're like, oh, they're not getting flooded in that sort of dopamine hit that has obviously been built into YouTube and everything else out there.
You've done hard things, Josh. How hard has this been, like starting a company?
It's quite hard. I think it goes back to the very early part of our conversation about, life is hard. Like starting a company is extremely hard. You've got to start with that baseline. I think coming from a military background, you have to compete with some of the very best in your field. And that is quite challenging, right? To be an Apache pilot, to be a SEAL, all these things. But the institution itself is backed by the United States government. Like that security apparatus is not going away. And when you're doing a startup, it's just you, and a startup is an experiment trying to prove it deserves to exist in the world. And getting from that, there's the book 0 to 1. Getting to that 1 is extraordinarily difficult because it's just you don't have tremendous resources, and you've got to demonstrate with both a vision and then eventually a reality that this is a valuable product. And between hiring the team, pitching people, getting it built, dealing with all of it's a tremendous amount of energy you've got to pour into like developing a new product, because it doesn't come out just how you want it the first time, right? Not even like the 10th or 100th time, and you just keep grinding and refining. And so all that takes a tremendous amount of energy. And that being said, I do I like doing new and interesting things all the time, and that's one thing that was great about the SEALs. Like you're always deploying somewhere else, doing even different types of missions. It was a very dynamic environment, and that's what a startup is too. So I in many ways, I wouldn't want to be doing something else because I like the challenge and the opportunity.
Awesome. And now it hasn't launched yet. Are you able to say when it's launching, just for people who are going to listen to this in the next couple weeks?
Yeah. So we'll be launching at the end of March. So it'll be available, and I'll provide you with a special offer link for everyone who's listening, and they'll be able to download Angel, get a 6-month discounted rate, and be able to use it with their kids.
Awesome. Perfect. Josh, just 2 things before I let you go. I always ask people. One is, when you were downrange, was there anything that you carried with you that somebody had given you, sentimental value, good luck charm, that you just wanted on or nearby?
I didn't carry this with me because it was cumbersome, but this is something really cool that my family did for me. Someone on my dad's side of the family knitted a prayer quilt. They knew this, and then they had every member of my family, laid hands on it and prayed for me. And this is hilarious too. This is a funny aspect of it. So my grandmother at the time, she was asking like how big my pack was, and I'm like, Grandma, it's not like World War II where we deploy with like a pack. You know what I mean? Like you go out on ops and you have your gear, but I'm not always like carrying this pack. And what she was getting at was like, will this prayer blanket fit in your pack? And it was just very sweet of her to be thinking of it like that. And so I would have that with me. Obviously, it didn't go out on ops, but it was something that was close by. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
Love it. And then last question I ask everybody, many years downrange for you. I can't even imagine how many deployments you just mentioned. As you look back on that time, would you do it again?
Yeah, oh, absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been an incredibly formative part of my life. And it's given me tremendous confidence and a sense of purpose and great friends. And yeah, absolutely, I would do it again.
Love it. Well, Josh, so people we'll put the info in the description when you're ready for it, so people can find AngelQ. Anything else you point them to, just for the company at this point, or you?
Sure. If there's anyone listening who's an AI engineer or works at a company doing things like that, we open sourced what we call Kid Rails, and this is it's a training method. It's an open framework for training models to be kid safe. And so it's something we did. One is making AI safe for kids is a hard problem. We want to get other people contributing to that as well. But in order to not repeat a lot of the mistakes of the past with unsafe technology, we want people to see how this is possible to do. And we even put out a sample llama. I think it's a 3 billion parameter model with that. But if you look up Kid Rails, you'll be able to find it. It's also on Hugging Face and GitHub. So anyone who's interested in that or building kids products, we'd love contributions or to reach out on that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Josh. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan.
Just a quick word from our sponsor, Delete Me. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Delete Me sends you regular personalized privacy reports showing what info they found, where they found it, and what they removed. Delete Me isn't just a one-time service. Delete Me is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. As someone with an active online presence and my background, privacy is really important to me and my family. As you may have heard me mention, I've been doxxed before by some unsavory people and want to avoid that wherever possible. Delete Me has helped me keep my private information out of the hands of those people, and I love getting my monthly reports. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners, today get 20% off your Delete Me plan by texting COMBAT to 64000. The only way to get 20% off is to text COMBAT to 64,000. That's COMBAT to 64000. Message and data rates may apply.